want to talk about this. You are very thoughtful, and you pay. There's like a clear path for a lot of your organizational design, what you're doing, and in helping people. And I noticed on your website you talk about how, looking at a small firm and just the amount of attention that you give, and how deep, and you don't care who it is, and you'll go to trial against anyone. And so there's a lot of different ways to approach this, right? Some people want to, do a high volume of cases, and you can grow a business like that. And then there are others that want to specialize and be this expert and be this thought leader in this area. How did you make that decision yourself? Is it more about the client? That's what I seem to hear from the trial attorneys more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I first started practicing law, we were in a revival window for priest abuse cases, and I was involved in those consolidated cases. And the firm that I worked at the time, we were doing a lot of those, and we did a lot of good for a lot of people. But I am not a volume practice. I just gave an interview yesterday, and someone was asking me, well, how many of these child abuse cases do you have, and how many adult cases do you have, and I said, we don't even count them. I take the cases that I'm passionate about. I represent the people that I think I can help, and I put my all into it. And you have to be able to do that and give these types of clients with the significant trauma that they have the individual attention that they deserve. So yeah, there's all this stuff on the internet now about grow your practice and expand. And I just kind of chuckle. I'm, that's not who I am. That's not how I want to practice law. I don't judge that, but let's just say those marketing efforts do not work on me,
right,
or my firm.
Right. Absolutely. No, that's amazing. That's amazing. And you have your direction, and you're designing your business for you and to help people. Recently, leaning into that, you talked about depositions and testimonies are critical to a case and trial, and you gave a talk about trauma-informed testimony training.
Yeah.
What is this training, and why is it important?
Lawyers who do this kind of work, I think all lawyers actually, but especially if you're working in the field of sex assault, sex abuse, sex harassment, and sex trafficking, you got to be trauma informed so you don't trigger your client, and so they don't go through this process, like walking through a landmine of things that are going to set them off. And I feel so passionately about this. I actually started 2 other businesses so I could go out and speak and get folks to train themselves, train their intake people on how to be trauma informed. And so one of the things that one of my businesses does is consulting, and I get asked by firms to come in and help prep their clients, whether it's a TBI case, an abuse case, whatever it is, if they have a significant history of trauma, to train them on how to prep their clients for testimony at deposition or trial. Or I will do the training. I will train the client myself. What happens when you're triggered or you have a trauma response is your entire brain shuts down. There's a wash of norepinephrine and cortisol, and the one whole hemisphere kind of goes offline. You're not going to get the best testimony out of your client. They're not going to reveal information in the way that you've seen them as their lawyer, working with them for a couple of years or months and months or whatever it is. Testify in the way that's going to be the most impactful and the most beneficial. And the defense wants them to be triggered, so they shut down and they can't recall, because they're disassociated or whatever. So it takes work. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to get those witnesses prepared, and not everyone knows how to do that. Sometimes they'll run through some documents, give them the general admonitions, and send them to their deposition. But that's not productive, and that's not, as far as I'm concerned, the best practice when you're talking about preparing someone with trauma for a deposition. So the other thing is, the lawyers don't always want to be the bad guys. So sometimes it's helpful for me to come in and play the defense lawyer role, because you want to protect your bond and the trust that you built with that client. And it's not like I go in and abuse them, but it's a different tone. And you just don't want to change that dynamic that you've spent all that time, that rapport that you've built with your client. So bring someone else in to push back and help them come up with strategies to get through testifying in an intense and acrimonious setting.